Alright, I'm going to speed go through the graphing packet and see how fast I can go. You guys, in order to graph sine and cosine, you should know the general shape of each of the functions. To get us started, we have the sine function. It says sine right there. The sine function has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 x values that we need to know in order to graph it, because the first one should be an x-intercept, or it should intercept the midline. I guess I should say that more often. That's the maximum point, then we're back at the midline, and then we're at the minimum point, and then we're back at the midline. Okay, so it has that shape. When we go to cosine, it starts at the maximum point, which is at 1 in this case, because there's nothing being done to the function. And then we go down to the midline. Then we go down to the minimum point, and then we go up to midline again, and then back to the maximum. So this function also has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 x values that are critical here in order for us to see a full cycle of the trig function. This is cosine, this is sine. Okay, here we go. Here's our first function. It's sine, so we know the general shape is just going to have, it's going to start at the midline. The amplitude is 3 because the number right there is 3. The period is still 2 pi. There's no b right here multiplying to the x, so the period doesn't change. The phase shift, there is none because there's no nothing being added to the x. The maximums are going to be, they're going to change because of the amplitude. They're going to be 3, and the minimums are going to be -3. Those are just the y values of the maximum and minimum points. It doesn't ask for the maximum point, just the maximum and the minimum. The y-intercept is going to be at 0, 0 because there's no phase shift. And the x-intercepts, those are where it crosses the midline. In this case, since it doesn't move up or down, there's no plus and then 3 or anything like that out there. Then that means our x-intercepts are going to still remain 0, pi, and then 2 pi. Actually, let's just change this over here to 0. Okay, so the general shape, it starts at 0, ends at 2 pi, because that's the main period. And we're going to start at the x-axis. Then at our next x, it goes up to, no, not 1, that's what it normally goes up to, it's going to go up to 3. Then we're back down to the x-intercept, and then it goes down to -3. And then we're back at the x-intercept. So we have our general, our shape of the sine function when the amplitude is changed when it's at 3. This function has no period change. The amplitude actually is 2.5. I'm not including the negative. The negative tells me it flips, but the amplitude still remains 2.5. There's no phase shift. You could write none or 0, I guess. The maximum is going to be at 2.5, and the minimums are going to be at -2.5. That's the y values at those points. And the y-intercepts, this y-intercept, remember the cosine function starts at 1 normally, at the maximum, but in this case our y-intercept is going to start at -2.5, or the graph starts at -2.5. And the x-intercepts, they're going to be the same as before, which was pi over 2 and 3 pi over 2, because there's no shift. Alright, so we're going for this shape right here. Alright, the first point is going to be not up here. In fact, it's not even going to be at 2.5. It's going to be down here at -2.5 because the function is shifted, or flipped because of the negative. And then we go to the midline, and then we go up to 2.5 again. Well, not again, but 2.5. Then we go back to the midline, and then back down to -2.5. And so our graph looks something like that. So that's how you do that one. Okay, let's switch the colors here. This time we have an amplitude change and a period change. When there's a B, there's a change in the period. And so the amplitude here is 4. The period is going to be 2 pi divided by b, and in this case the b is 2. Before the b's were just 1, so we wouldn't do this, and so our period is pi. The phase shift, there is none. Let's put 0 this time. Last time we were saying none. The maximums, well, let's see here. because it's a 4, we're going to say our maximum is 4. The minimums are going to be at negative 4. If there was a vertical change, like let's say it's plus 5, then these would change also, but we don't have to worry about that yet because we're not there. The y-intercepts, well, because there's no horizontal shift, there's no phase shift, the normal y-intercept would be at 0. It's going to stay at 0 because this is sine. If it was cosine, then it'd be different because the amplitude would change, because the amplitude changes the maximums and the minimums. The x-intercepts are still going to be at pi and 2 pi. Oh, don't forget 0. And that's it for that. Okay, so we're going for this shape right here. Alright, let's see what happens. At 0, because that's our first point, we're at the midline. Because it says negative, we're going to go down instead of up, because before we would go up like this, but now we have to go down, so it's going to be that kind of a shape. We're going to go down to negative 4. Hopefully that's negative 4. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, that's negative. And then we go back up to the midline, and then, oops, I almost forgot the period changed. Ooh. Okay, so that means before, oops, try to undo things here. Before, we would have went like this all the way to 2 pi, but now we're going to go like this to pi. And so we need to have all our other points. We have to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 x values. If we stop right here, that's when the cycle stops. We only have 1, 2, 3, okay? So we need to have an additional point, x value. So we have this one, okay, I always like split it in half first, and then I split this part in half, and so I have that, and then I split this part in half, and I have that. Well, what's between 0 and pi over 2? That is a pi over 4. All you have to do is multiply pi over 2 by 1/2, and you get your answer there. Then we add another pi over 4 to this, which would give us 3 pi over 4 for this value. Alright, so those are x values for this function, and they changed because of the period. The period changed. And now to graph all our points. We know it's going to go down. It's going to look something like that. So we start with our point right here. Let's use black this time. And for pi over 4, we're going to go down to 4. Then we go back to our midline. Then we go up to 4. And then we go back to our midline. And so here's our graph. That's one period. Okay, now let's graph the other period. We have this x value, and then in between those. And so we're going to go back down to 4, back to midline, and then go up to maximum and back to midline. So we continue on like so, and that's how you graph that one. Okay, so the amplitude on this one is going to be 3 over 2. The period, well, this is kind of weird because it's being divided by 4. You can also look at it like this, 3 over 2 cosine 1/4 times x. So just like before, we're going to take 2 pi and divide it by 1 over 4. That would be the same as saying 2 pi times 4 over 1, which would give us 8 pi. And so that is our period. Our period is 8 pi, which is going to be different because this graph only goes up to 2 pi. So let's see what our graph is going to look like. A phase shift, we have none. There's no phase shift because there's nothing being added to the function like that. So we have 0. The maximums are going to be at 3 over 2, or you could say 1.5. The minimums are going to be at negative 3 over 2, or you could say negative 1.5. The y-intercepts, well, for cosine, remember how the normal cosine function starts at 1. So like it would go like this. Oops. I like to draw the points. It'd be easier for me. This is the normal cosine function. We start at 1 normally. But the amplitude is going to stretch that up to 1.5. And so you can say 1.5 or 3 over 2. I actually like to say 1.5 whenever I'm graphing, so let's just do that. The x-intercepts are going to be at pi over 2 and 3 pi over 2. And then, alright, it's time to graph. So we have a period, a different period, which is 8 pi. Oh, that's kind of weird. Actually, I think I'm going to use this to help me out to find all my x values here. We're starting at 0, and we're ending at 8 pi. The middle one's going to be 4 pi, and we're still not even on our interval yet. This is going to be 2 pi right here. Oh, this is going to be 6 pi. So that's 2 pi. That's 2 pi right here. This is This right here is the only thing we're going to see on our graph right here. So I'm going to use this to kind of help me because this is a weird window. We're going to start at 1.5 and we're going to go down to 2 pi. Oops, missed it. So that's all you're going to see right there. That is the graph in that window. Okay, I already reached 10 minutes, and so I'm going to graph the rest of this in the next video.